Shiana, the Ophiuchus Saint. Of all the female saints in the Saint Seiya series, she is the most well known and the most loved. But why? When you think about it, we don't even know that much about her. We know she's a silver saint, she has authority, and she loves Seiya. That's all we really know, and yet she's become one of the standout characters of the series. So let's take a look and find out just how that happened in today's episode, The Journey of Shiana. Shiana is a silver Ophiuchus saint, but she was by no means the first to wear that armor. In Saint Seiya the Lost Canvas, we catch a glimpse at Shiana's predecessor. She doesn't talk, we don't know her name, and she's on screen for like half a second, but she's part of the mythos, so... Shiana's story doesn't start until 200 years later. Chronologically, we first meet Shiina as a young saint in training. She is just dominating her fellow students, one of which is her future best friend and Seiya's teacher, Marin. After just destroying everyone, she comes across a rabbit and takes off her mask so not to scare it. Now, this would be one of the most important moments in Shiana's life, because almost immediately after removing her mask, Seiya finds her and sees her face. Now, something you need to understand about female saints. It's a centuries-old rule that if you are a woman who decides to become a saint, you must renounce your womanhood and cover your face for the rest of your life. Because once you've become a saint, that is all you will ever be. You are no longer a woman. You're no longer even just a person. You are a saint, and that's all you will ever be. Even death does not change this. Dead or alive, you will always be a saint. Now, we don't know who created this rule about the mask. It doesn't even seem like the kind of rule Athena will create. But there is a second part to the rule. If any man happens to see the face of a female saint, she has one of two choices. She can either choose to love him or kill them. This is important because almost immediately after taking off her mask, Seiya shows up and sees her face. So, yeah. Now, Shiana isn't actually a saint yet, so she tries to shoo Seiya away, or else she'll kill him. But Seiya doesn't buy it for a second. Instead, he sees her bleeding hands and bandages them, telling Shiina that he knows she isn't as cold as she wants everyone to believe, before running off again. While Seiya goes on to forget this encounter, Shiana doesn't, and it stays with her for years. Also, quick side note, this is the second Journey of episode I've done, and we've already had two older women threaten the life of a small boy. I wonder if this will become a trend. So the next big step in Shiana's life is something we don't actually get to see. Some point after she initially meets Seiya, she becomes the Ophiuchus Saint. Even if we don't see it, it's still an important moment in her life. So... next up is when the story starts up proper. It's been several years now, and Shiana is a teacher. When we meet up with her again, her student, really all of her students, are just being destroyed by Seiya, who was trained by fellow Silver Saint Marin. Even Cassius, Shiina's star student, is just decimated. Suffice to say, Shiana doesn't take it well. As a reward for being the strongest trainee, Seiya is given a bronze Pegasus cloth. That same night, Shiana and 98% of all the other saints go to steal the cloth from Seiya. And if they have to kill him, oh well. Now the reason Shiana gives for this is that she doesn't like Seiya, who is Japanese, is going back to Japan and taking her precious Pegasus cloth with him. The Pegasus cloth having been in Greece for centuries. Ultimately, Seiya and Shiana come to blows. He manages to break off her mask and compliments her, pretty much saying, "I'd figure you'd be as ugly as your attitude." But Seiya gets away and leaves Shiana behind to stew in her anger. A few weeks later, we see Shiana again, and she is just beating the crap out of Marin. She does it under the guise of a sparring session, but that ruse goes almost immediately out the window, because even though Marin is clearly the weaker fighter, Shiana doesn't let up. Even when Marin is on the ground bleeding, Shiana's followers hold her up as Shiana uses Marin as a punching bag.
Finish her!
You get the sense that Shiana is really willing to kill Marin, and she might have until Ioria, a gold saint, shows up and tells Shiana to knock it off. Not only that, but he calls Shiana out on her BS, saying she's only doing this because Marin's student beat all of her students, and tells her just to get over it. Shiana just pouts and leaves. While this is going on, Seiya and friends get into a little bit of trouble and are branded as traitors, and as luck would have it, Shiana is put in charge of hunting him down and killing them. She quickly puts a team together, going full on villain mode, and even does an evil laugh.
What's with the laughing? What is that? Who does that help? Huh?
Unfortunately, things don't go her way. Seiya's team walks away with some scars, but are ultimately victorious. This is when Shiana starts to become desperate and decides to take on Seiya directly. While she does get the upper hand, she also finds the reason why Seiya is in so much danger. You see, the saints are all under the rule of the goddess Athena, and as far as all the other saints know, Athena is back at their sanctuary, lying in wait for a war that may or may not happen. But here comes Seiya's group, claiming that Athena isn't in Greece, but she's actually this purple-haired girl from Japan. Now the Pope knows that what Seiya is saying is true, but to make sure his evil plans, years in the making, aren't foiled, he sends all of the saints after Seiya and the real Athena. For the most part, Shiana doesn't care about this woman claiming to be Athena, because she was just an excuse to deal with the real issue of Seiya. But when she feels this girl's power firsthand, she starts to realize there may be something to Seiya's claims. That's when Hyoga and Shun show up to save the day and drive Shiana away. As a result of the attack though, Seiya is sent to the hospital where Shiana tracks him down, and this leads to a kind of funny interaction where Seiya stops taking Shiana seriously and just starts to complain about how Shiana only comes after him and then jumps out the window to escape. Shiana's response is to tell him to stop running and face her and one-on-one so they can end it. This is where we find out a little about Seiya's character, because his response is that he doesn't know what there is to finish, but he cannot bring himself to fight her because she is a woman. I don't think he's sexist, but he's just one of those guys who thinks you should never hit a girl. Weird. That's why, no matter how many times Shiana attacked him, no matter how many times she came after him or Marin, he never fought her, unless it was for self-defense. Shiana's response also lets us know a little more about her character. Basically, Shiana feels like she has something to prove. You get the feeling that Seiya's response to her challenge is one she's heard before. And while there are a few saints, like Arioria, who do see female saints as equals, most other saints see people like Shiina and Marin as woman first and saint second. That's why Shiana acts so cold and why she puts up so many walls. She wants people to see her as a strong warrior, but Seiya doesn't see her like that. Not only has he beaten her multiple times, but he's seen her kind and gentle side. This is the moment where Shiina's hatred and fondness for Seiya start to collide. Because as they're in the middle of their fight, Arioria, the Gold Saint, arrives, and Shiina's first reaction is to tell Seiya to run because he cannot win this fight. And she was right. Arioria shows up and tells Shiina the Pope finds her too weak to deal with Seiya, so she should just leave. In response, Shiina jumps in to protect Seiya, and with a single finger, Arioria takes out Shiina and Seiya. So Shiina is pretty much done at this point. While she's knocked out, another gold cloth arrives to help Seiya. Arioria, knowing the gold cloths only help those who serve Athena, takes a step back and tells Seiya he's gonna go and think things over. So he leaves and takes Shiina to get some help. Now this next part I'm going to talk about is about Shiana's development, but she isn't involved in it directly. Instead, it involves her student, Cassius. Now, this is part of the reason why I love Saint Seiya so much, because in any other anime, Cassius would have been the stereotypical bully who maybe joined up with the villains for power and to get Seiya back for humiliating him, even cutting off his ear in the battle. But that doesn't happen. Instead, when Ioria drops off Shiana, Cassius starts looking after her. But when Shiana wakes up, she immediately starts asking, what about Seiya? Where's Seiya? I have to help Seiya. This obviously surprises Cassius, but not as much as when Shiana doesn't deny being in love with Seiya. So in response to Shina's crazy behavior, Cassius knocks Shiana out and goes after Seiya, because in Cassius's mind, Seiya not only took his ear and his chance to become a saint, but he also took the woman he loves as well. When Cassius finally catches up to Seiya, he's on the ground, almost broken. Aurora is standing over him, ready to finish him off. Quick plot point, Aurora has been brainwashed by the evil Pope and is basically a Terminator. Cassius asks if he can be the one to finish off Seiya, and the second he gets the chance, he turns around and attacks Ioria. Of course, Ioria being a gold saint and Cassius not even being a saint, things don't go well. But Cassius does two things. First, he explains the only way to get Ioria back to normal is for him to witness a death. The second thing he explains is that he still hates Seiya with a passion, but he is going to save him, because if Seiya were to die, a certain someone he loves would be very sad, and he doesn't want that. Aurora easily breaks away from Cassius and goes to finish off Seiya, only for Cassius to jump in the way and take the fatal blow. Cassius is a character that was introduced as a stereotypical villain, and really, in the span of the original series, which is about 150 episodes, Cassius was in like 3 to 4, and he still has one of the most memorable and heroic deaths in the series. As Cassius fades away, Seiya reassures him that he will be able to protect Shiana from the stars. Shiana soon waking up in a panic, instantly knowing that something has happened to Cassius. Aurora takes his body back to Sanctuary and presents it to Shiana along with an apology, because he was the one who killed him. But Shiana doesn't blame him. Instead, she chooses to blame herself and the evil Pope. And after paying her respects to her fallen student, immediately heads off, not to protect Seiya, but to help him. Shiana disappears for a while, but makes a heroic entrance when she finds a group of saints beating down on Marin. Now Shiana is still a little coy. When she's asked if she loves Seiya, she says no. She just wants revenge on the Pope, and helping Seiya will allow her to get her vengeance. But when the Pope's main lackey threatens Seiya's life, Shiana becomes notably agitated. Then this guy does the worst thing you could possibly do. He starts talking crap about Shiana being a woman.
Fatality.
So after the beatdown, Shiana sends Marin ahead while she continues to let off some stress. Marin does manage to save Seiya, but at the cost of poisoning her own body. Shiana catches up and lets Seiya know that he can keep going and she'll look after Marin. At the same time, she apologizes to him in her own way, and she says this:
"If we make it through this, I am going to rock his world." And
thus, the Gold Saint arc ends, and everyone is saved. Several days later, a new enemy emerges. Almighty Odin sends his god warriors to kill Athena and her saints. Or did he? Anyway, a god warrior shows up and sucker punches some saints before taking off. Long story short, the saints need to save the day by invading Asgard. They make it a good way in when we cut to Marin speaking with Aldebaran, the Taurus Gold Saint. Ah, Aldebaran, as gentle as he is tall. He basically tells her that when he was attacked, he felt a second presence, because even though he blocked the invader's attack, he still got hit a second later. Marin goes to relay this information to the main group, but is ambushed and saved by Shiana. She lets Marin rest and continues the mission in her place. A little later, she manages to catch up to Shun, who is about to be attacked while resting after a well-earned victory. While Shiana does manage to save Shun, she herself is not strong enough to beat this new enemy, but she does manage to buy enough time for Ikki to arrive.
Like fire, hellfire, this fire in my skin, this burning desire is turning me to sin.
So the battle ends, and this guy learns about brotherly love, and the group moves forward. A little later, the main group is up against the final boss, and everyone goes down except for Seiya. He's on his feet, getting ready to unleash an attack, but the bad guy lets out his attack first, and Shiana, in an attempt to save Seiya, gets in the way. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out, because the attack was so strong that it not only hits Shiana, but passes through her and hits Seiya as well, smashing them both to the ground. This is Shina's last contribution in this arc, and the next time we see her, she is looking into the sunset with the others. I am almost convinced that the masks have some sort of sentience, just like the cloths. I know the masks aren't part of the armor, because when we see a young Shiana, she still has her mask, but she isn't a saint. And in the next series, we see the new Gemini Saint. She's a woman. She has a mask. The Gemini Saint before her was Saga. He was very clearly not a woman. But anyway, my main point is, this is Shiana when she took the hit for Seiya. This is her a few minutes later. The mask is alive. So during the last battle, the God Warriors discover that this whole plot was orchestrated by Poseidon, the god of the oceans. He pretty much woke up and decided he wanted to trick the God Warriors into getting rid of Athena and her saints for him, so he could more easily take over the world. When that plan failed, he decided, I'm just gonna drown the earth. So the saints have to stop him. For the most part, the gang does a pretty good job of defeating the marine generals, but that alone doesn't solve anything. There are 7 pillars holding up the world's oceans that need to be destroyed, but Seiya and his friends aren't strong enough to do it. Enter Kiki. No, not that Kiki, although that would be awesome. A young but powerful saint in training. He was sent to give the group the Gold Saint Arsenal. These are supposed to be the most powerful weapons on the planet. But Kiki gets intercepted, but here comes Shiana to save the day. She saves Kiki and tells him to go on ahead. And then, I'm gonna be a little honest, she gets a little full of herself. She goes after Poseidon. Poseidon is like Athena. He was born on Earth in the body of a mortal. Unlike Athena, who is born a normal girl and grows up into a goddess, Poseidon has to possess the body he inhabits, like a dual mind kind of thing. So Shiana goes after Poseidon, believing he will be just some rich kid who can't control his power. Doesn't go down that way. So later, Poseidon finishes wiping the floor with the entire group. And once again, the gold Sagittarius cloth arrives to aid Seiya. Things still don't go well. Seiya shoots an arrow at Poseidon, and Poseidon sends it right back. Shiana takes the hit. She painfully pulls the arrow out of her back and gives it to Seiya. She becomes his human shield and embraces him as he fires again, and I just love this shot. Poseidon catches the arrow again and sends it back again. This time, Shiryu takes the hit because he's not about to let Shiana kill herself. Finally, they decide fuck it, and the whole group send their energy to Seiya. And he shoots the arrow at Poseidon's head, and it hits his helmet. It only manages to scratch Poseidon, but this is more than enough to piss off Poseidon. So more gold cloths arrive to aid the group, and they manage to hold Poseidon off long enough for Athena to arrive and seal Poseidon's soul and save the day. Now we enter the Hades arc. Some unspecified amount of time later, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, we find Shiana, who has been promoted to Captain of the Guard, putting her officially in charge of all Bronze and Silver Saints. This pretty much makes her the highest ranking non-gold saint, and for the most part, her job consists of taking care of the day-to-day activities of the sanctuary. She doesn't play a huge role in this arc. We find her in the beginning when she discovers several graves have been desecrated and the bodies are missing. It's Shiana who realizes that these graves haven't been dug into. It's more like something dug out. Basically what happened is that Hades resurrected the souls of fallen gold saints to serve him. As a result, Athena orders Shiana to guard the entrance of the sanctuary and to not let anyone enter, no exceptions. Then comes Hyoga and Shun, wondering what the hell is going on. Shiana gives them the rundown and tells them Athena's orders, so she won't let them pass. Now Shiana knows Seiya's friends. She knows they're the heroes of the sanctuary, but Athena wants this dealt with in-house. She wants the Gold Saints to deal with this, so Shiana won't let them pass. Now Shiana is nothing if not a loyal saint. She respects Seiya and his friends, but they aren't Seiya. And even if they were Seiya, you know, if Athena says attack the heroes of Sanctuary, that's exactly what she's going to do. And that's exactly what she does. Shiana and Hyoga get into a little skirmish. Doesn't last long, because Shiana is not an idiot. She knows that sometimes you have to break the rules, even if it's just through technicality. She stops fighting and turns around and says go. I can't stop you if I can't see you. So that's what Hyoga and Shun do. They run off with fellow bronze saints, wishing them luck. Thanks to this, the group is ultimately able to save the day, which means Shiana saved the day. But that's pretty much the last thing Shiana does. The next time we see her, she's still on guard duty when Marin arrives. They'll tell her that Hades is the reason an eclipse suddenly appeared. She does have one more notable scene in the original series. While Shiana and Marin and all the other saints are waiting around, cheering Seiya and the group on, Marin reveals she has found Seiya's long-lost sister. And this scene is notable because this is the first and really the only time that the most important women in Seiya's life are all together. Marin, his teacher and surrogate big sister, Seki, her actual big sister, and Shiana, his maybe future girlfriend. And that's the end of Shiana's story, at least in the main continuity. In doing research for this episode, I discovered Shiana has one more role in the 4th Saint Seiya movie, which apparently has its own continuity. And man, let me tell you, it was a pain in the ass to find this movie. But anyway, this movie is supposed to be more loyal to the original manga. Basically what happened is after the Hades arc, Seiya is left in a kind of vegetative state. While in this state, Athena's sister Artemis arrives and basically forces Athena to come back to the realm of the gods and takes over ruling Earth in her stead. That means Athena's saints are no longer her saints. They are Artemis's saints. And if they don't like that, they can take their complaints straight to the afterlife. When Seiya eventually comes through, he heads straight to the sanctuary, where Shiana is stationed, and Shiana and some of Seiya's fellow bronze saints proceed to beat the crap out of him. Now, this is an example of what I mean when I say this has its own continuity, because at this point in the series, Shiana's love for Seiya has been pretty well established. In the movie, her actions are more in line with her season 1 self, where all she wants was to kill Seiya. Not only that, but Shiana is a pretty loyal saint, so the idea that she would just forsake Athena's name so easily is unbelievable. Now, there are some fan theories that suggest Shiana was on Seiya's side the whole time, because after she beats him down, she throws him down a trench, where he eventually stumbles upon his Pegasus cloth. And later on, when Seiya's energy disappears, pretty much signifying death, we cut to Shiana hitting a rock in frustration. Surprisingly, I'm not sure if I buy this theory, but make of it what you will. So next, we move on to Saint Seiya Omega. There isn't going to be as much character exploration in this section, because Shiana's role is pretty much relegated to a glorified cameo in this series. So the year is... the Earth has seen many years of peace since the defeat of Hades, but then the god Mars appears. That's right, we took on the Greek gods, so bring on the Romans. He shows up, starts some stuff, and now Gold Saint Seiya is seemingly killed protecting Athena. And a baby? Is that Seiya and Athena's? No, it's not. A lot of people like to think that this baby is Seiya's and Athena's kid, but that never gets confirmed. In fact, the only information his official biography says on the matter is that Athena found him and another kid in a crater. So no, since that's not how babies are made, he's not their kid. So sometime, and one ramble later, Koga is being looked after by Athena and is being trained by Shiina. Why not Marin? So Athena knows that this kid is special, so she has already decided that he will be the next to inherit the Pegasus cloth. So it falls to Shiana to train him, and Shiana is nothing if not a strict teacher. Shiana does her best to train Koga to live up to Seiya's legacy, which Koga doesn't like, because for some reason nobody has actually told him who Seiya really was. All he knows is that Seiya was a hero who saved him as a kid. But then one day, while training, Koga says the worst possible thing he could. He starts badmouthing Seiya directly to Shiina. Now no one badmouths the hero of Sanctuary and the man of Sheena's dreams directly to her face. So this sets Shiina off immediately.
Holy shit snacks.
So, as luck would have it, Mars returns later that day. Shiina quickly gets into gear to protect Athena, but it goes as well as the last time she tried to take on a god. In the end, Athena is captured and Shiina is badly wounded, leaving Koga with a mission to save Athena and avenge his teacher. 24 episodes later, Shiina reappears in moderately better condition. She meets Koga's new friends and basically gives Koga the rundown on the origin of his birth. You know, the whole meteor thing. After that, she participates a little in the next mission, but after that, she honestly kind of disappears. Yet another 24 episodes later, Shiina once again suddenly reappears, this time in the Sanctuary, and again she meets Koga and another of his new friends. She just points Koga to Athena, and that's it. A few more episodes later, we see Shiina again in this scene, which is pretty cool because before, we've seen a small group of saints go to war. This time, the entirety of the Saint army is getting ready for war. We see Athena and the Gold Saints rally the army, and Shiina is one of the generals, and Marin is... So for the last arc of the series, we see Shiina occasionally. You know, she's either in the background or gives Koga a little pep talk. Nothing really significant happens with her character until she, along with everyone else on Earth, gets turned into stone. She is eventually revived, and we do get a cool shot of her when Koga basically absorbs the energy of all the saints on Earth. We see Shiina's spirit among all the other saints, giving Koga his strength. And that's it! That's the last time we see her. One of the most popular characters of the series, and that's it. The only supporting character popular enough that she's the only one they kept from the original series, and she doesn't even get a proper send-off. No, she doesn't even get a send-off. The series just ends without her. Where did she go? Did she go to find out where Marin's been this whole time? I have a theory. Okay, so quick little side note. While I was doing research for this episode, I found this amusing piece of information. In the Saint Seiya official encyclopedia, Shiina appears as Seiya's main love interest, and it is stated that Shiina has a 70% chance of being in a romantic relationship with Seiya. Like, where did they get that number? Seriously, where did they get it? Did they go through each episode and count how many times Shiina protected Seiya versus how many times Marin did it versus how many times Athena did it? I bring this up because I think Shiina left so quickly because she didn't want to see this scene right here.
寂しくなりますね。
だから言っただろ、俺がいるって、沙織さん。
ありがとう、せいや。
I mean, what can I say? Sorry, Shiina. I'm definitely rooting for you, but that 70% might as well be 0 at this point. So that was Shiina. This episode was definitely a little more of a character study than the last video, but I think it was warranted. You know, Bulma doesn't need a character breakdown. She's Bulma. Dragon Ball characters in general are very simple, but Saint Seiya is a different show with more complex characters. And on top of that, we don't know nearly as much about Shiina as we should. If I did this episode more similarly to the Bulma episode where I listed the things she did in the series, this video would have been like 5 minutes long. Even though this episode definitely took me longer to write and edit, it was still a lot of fun. And I hope you guys enjoyed it too. And if you have any suggestions for the Journey of series, please feel free to leave them down in the comments. Right now, I'm thinking either someone from Bleach, Fairy Tail, or maybe something else. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you again next time.